Welcome back. President Biden stands firm on his deadline, rejecting pleas from G7 leaders and lawmakers to keep American troops in Afghanistan beyond August 31st.
We agreed that we will continue to our close cooperation to get people out as efficiently and safely as possible. The completion by August 31st depends upon the Taliban continuing to cooperate. In addition, I've asked the Pentagon and the State Department for contingency plans to adjust the timetable should that become necessary.
Joining me live from the UK is former Brexit Party leader Nigel Farage. Nigel, thanks for being here. I was excited to talk to you this morning, and I'm just going to ask you point blank, given everything you've seen play out in the last week and a half to 2 weeks, how does the United States look on the world stage?
Never been worse. Never been worse. I mean, we have been beside you for 20 years. We're a smaller country than America, but pro rata, the UK has put in the same money and suffered the same human loss. And we've never, ever quibbled about that. We understood the reasons for the mission. And we, too, after 20 years, were tired of being there. But how you withdraw, the method by which you withdraw is just as crucial with a military operation as how you go in. And for President Biden, unilaterally, without consultation with us or the rest of the NATO allies, just to announce America is going to effectively fly the white flag to the Taliban, to see that dramatic takeover of these barbarians of the country. We feel, frankly, and by the way, you'll never meet anybody more pro-American than me. My whole working life was with American companies. I've been engaged and involved with Fox and American politics. But right now, why would we ever trust America in any international mission, given they make decisions without consulting their closest friends?
Gosh, that is such a strong statement. Here's what Boris Johnson had to say. This was after the virtual G7 yesterday. Quote, "We will go right up until the last minute that we can, but you've heard what the President of the United States has said. You've heard what the Taliban have said. We're confident we can get thousands more out, but the situation at the airport is not getting any better." It has certainly been a chaotic situation at the airport in Kabul. We heard President Biden yesterday talk about some threats that they are receiving from ISIS. And when you look at the situation in Afghanistan, ISIS, it doesn't like the Taliban just as much as they don't like us. So I understand that there could be some dire threats there. But I'm curious, you've seen how Americans are reacting, how we here in this country so badly want to get all of our people out. We want to get all of our allies out. Everybody here, on the ground stands pretty much in solidarity with that. And we're hearing these tragic stories of people crying, saying that they don't have anyone to help them, that they can't get out. Are you hearing the same thing on your end?
Oh, yes, and worse. And worse. I mean, for example, a very good friend of mine, a British Royal Marine, highly decorated, was back in Afghanistan in February and March this year doing some filming. He and the film crew had 4 interpreters, all 4 murdered in the street outside their homes in Kandahar just 10 days ago. So we're already seeing reprisal killings. We're already seeing women being told, don't go to work, stay at home. And here's the real worry. There are going to be thousands, not just of Afghan interpreters, but of British and American and other European citizens who will be left behind in Afghanistan to goodness knows what only fate. And here's the worst part of all of this. The first job of the American president, just as the first job of the British Prime Minister, is to protect your own citizens. Mm-hmm. And this announcement of the American withdrawal was made without a thought for any of those individuals. And they're the ones in the end that are going to pay a very high price. So I suspect between now and the deadline of the 31st, the scenes at Kabul airport will get worse. After that, I shudder to think what will happen to those left behind. And this American president came in saying that he was kind, compassionate. America is back. Do you remember that? Resonance of that message? Yeah. America is back on the world stage, back leading international cooperation. And not only has he betrayed us and NATO and America's friends in the world, but actually he's shown himself to be deeply callous when it comes to human beings. I mean, how can you say, when you're shown a picture of 2 people falling out of a fuselage, shucks, that doesn't matter, it was 4 or 5 days ago? I mean, what kind of man is this?
Yeah. I know a lot of people are saying that they wish that his speeches would seem a little bit more compassionate. I'm curious what you think this means, a couple years down the line, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line for the United States and our relations with our allies throughout the world? Because, I don't know what the situation is going to look like in a few weeks, a few months. I don't think any of us can even imagine what it's going to look like, because no one imagined it would have looked like this now. But how bad do you think it's going to be, and how hard do you think it's going to be for the U.S. going forward with our allies to be able to salvage these relationships and to make people believe they can trust us again?
Well, short term, obviously, the biggest fear of the thousands that will be left trapped after the 31st. And amazing, isn't it? The whole of the G7 begging Joe Biden to extend the deadline, but no, because the Taliban and ISIS have threatened an American president, and he's decided to dance to their tune. The medium-term problem is the resurgence of international terror. Already evidence that extremist jihadi groups all over the world have taken great cheer from what the Taliban have done in Afghanistan. And so if we do find ourselves back engaged, and let's be honest, the last few years we've not seen major terrorist atrocities in the West, but if they start to happen again, and we start to think, well, how do we go out again and try and stop these cells that are spreading international terror? How can we do it with the Americans? How can we do it with an ally that has treated us with contempt and betrayed us, and into the bargain, many of our own citizens? Certainly, if it's a Biden or Harris administration, I honestly, there is no way a British Parliament right now would vote for military cooperation with America led by this administration. And that's a very sad thing to say, because since 1917, the UK and America have been side by side in virtually every major conflict. We've been the closest allies in terms of military action, in terms of intelligence sharing, in terms of culture, in terms of business. You couldn't have a better ally in the world than us. And right at the moment, I'm sorry, but there's no way we could enter into another operation with you.
Wow. Nigel Farage, thank you for joining me to talk about it. It's tough to hear, but I think it's a conversation that has to be had. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it. Carly.